Welcome back. We thank you so much for staying with us here on SA Today. Let's take a look at some business news now. The National Impact Dynamic Study states that as many as 3.6 million people lost their jobs between February and April. According to the study, women bore the brunt of this, accounting for 2/3 of the jobs that were lost in this time. Women also account for the majority of the 8.5 million unemployed youth in our country. So what's the solution now to get young people and women into jobs? Let's ask Youth Employment Services Chief Executive Dr. Tashmia Ismail-Saville, who joins me now live via Skype. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so let's just talk about the magnitude of job losses, of course, according to the study. As I said on my introduction, as many as 3.6 million people may have lost their jobs.
Yeah, this is the NIDS survey. It is quite a broad survey. Yes, conducted a survey of its own with youth across the country. We have over 3,600 responses, and a large number of our youth are saying to us that they were supporting added household members who had lost their jobs or who were unable to travel to work. So the 3.6 million that we're seeing looks like a very likely figure. It is terrifying. Many women are sole breadwinners in their homes. They are heads of households. And so when we see that women have been impacted by these job losses, you mentioned 2/3, we know that there are whole households that are going to be impacted, given the important role that women play in communities.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, women also account for the majority of the 8.5 million unemployed youth in the country. So this is a double tragedy, so to say, for women in the country.
Absolutely. So every time we have any economic shock, if we look at the unemployment numbers, the two groups that are disproportionately affected by unemployment are youth and women. And so if you're a young woman in this country, it is a very difficult place to try to make a living and become an economic participant.
But then the problem has been identified. We know what the problem is. What can be done with this unemployment problem in the country? We are now on alert level 2 of the lockdown. Are things likely to get a bit better going forward?
Absolutely. If you look at the details behind that NIDS survey, what we're also seeing is that the types of jobs that many women were in, which was in spas, in hair and personal care type businesses, all of those were forced to close. And a lot of women were in those face-to-face service industry type jobs. So hopefully with level 2 and people being able to travel to work and open their businesses, we start to see some of these jobs come back. The big worry, of course, for us is the types of businesses that can't reopen. Many of these businesses don't sit with a big buffer account that that they can weather this kind of shutdown for the number of months and days that have occurred. And where we worry is that the businesses that have not been able to, create the systems and processes that will allow for reopening. And that recovery is going to be very, very slow, I'm afraid.
Exactly what I wanted to ask as to how do we sort of remedy the situation going forward, because we've seen a number of companies have had to shut down because of the lockdown. So it's not going to be an easy walk on the park.
No, it certainly won't. But there's also a mindset around the economy. There is a positivity that we need to apply. So the first half of this interview has been a little bit depressing, where we look at the numbers of what has happened. But I really believe that if we get Business South Africa to step up, to all press a reset button at the same time and say, as Business SA, we are going to give people a chance. I mean, something that's quite a powerful statistic that we work with is that if you give a young woman a quality reference letter, a lot of research says that it doubles the likelihood of a woman finding a job within 3 months of job search. This tells us that people are happy to hire women and will hire women if they've been de-risked with some kind of work experience. And so if we can give young women, when we're making decisions to employ people, if we can make an active decision to give young women a chance, the power of that job in terms of those women likely being head of households, the investment they make in their families, and the fact that that first job that gets them into the jobs market really is a game changer for them. And so this needs to be in our national mindset. You know, we have a country that is extremely unfair on women. We've been talking about the economic cost to women, but socially, if you look at, it's a female genocide in South Africa. Violence against women and children is an epidemic that is worse than COVID. And if we can, as citizens and employers, bear in mind how powerful a mover it is if we give a woman a chance, and bear that in mind as we create opportunities for jobs going forward, we can have hiring a woman has a multiplier effect.
All right.
And that's one of the things that we need to bear in mind.
And also, I think that an important question is, how do we turn this unemployed young people, unemployed youth and women in the country to job creators themselves, so that they don't just depend on someone else to create jobs for them, but they actually create jobs themselves?
We're very excited to announce that we're opening a Yes Hub in Saldanha and in Alexandra Township, and those are both opening in the first 10 days of September. We have a hub in Tembisa, which we are looking at reopening. Of course, with lockdown, we've had to close, and we've had issues with the power in Tembisa. But those hubs bring technology, they bring training courses, they bring capital into the heart of a community, and you're on point there. We've got to stimulate entrepreneurship, and women are naturally very entrepreneurial. Women are very resourceful, and hopefully by bringing these technologies and know-how into communities, women can start to create jobs for themselves closer to home. And if they create jobs for themselves closer to home through an entrepreneurial route, they don't have to get onto long taxi rides to try to find work, leave their kids behind. In terms of social fabric and caring for your family and being there to nurture and transmit a value set to your kids, it's always going to be powerful if we can help women to create jobs closer to home. In order to help them to assist with their family dynamics, which are a whole challenge all on their own. And of course, saving all of those transport costs, which can be up to a third of a person's salary, they can be investing that money into their children and their home.
All right.
So there are ways through an entrepreneurial route to do this.
Interesting indeed. All right, we're going to have to leave it at that, but we thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
All right. Youth Employment Service Chief Executive Dr. Tashmia Ismail-Saville talking to us about the survey that indicates that as many as 3.6 million people lost their jobs between the month of February and the month of April in the country. A quick break.